Hey, welcome back, everyone.
Hey, guys.
This is Healthier Ever After. I'm Rick Sorensen.
Greg Camp.
We are here discussing healthy lifestyles and weight loss and all things physiology.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting a little physiology kick lately.
Yeah. We like to just talk about the kind of the processes in the body, as Rick had coined on the last episode, is like everything that your body does. We talk about it sometimes in the macro.
Like exercise is good for you.
Yes, but why?
Why? What's happening?
It's at the cellular level.
It happens in the cells. Yeah, a lot of this happens in the cells. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. This is for educational and informational purposes only. Please talk to your medical provider before starting any supplement, exercise regimen, or weight loss program. Today we want to talk about. Let's talk about cortisol.
Yeah.
So I mentioned last time maybe we need to reprise some of our things. This might feel like a little bit of a reprise. We've talked about stress. We've talked about sleep, the importance of that. We'll have to do a reprise on that specifically. But cortisol is kind of like the physiologic driver for some of these things, and it is a key hormone in someone who is really trying to manage your weight, your blood sugar, your energy.
Absolutely.
It's a key thing. So we want to talk about a little about what it is, what it does, why cortisol, can you not just like take a cortisol pill or,
not just,
like if you need it, so we'll talk a little about what cortisol does and what it doesn't. It's all over the internet. You can search cortisol, people talking about it. And so we want to kind of maybe clarify a little bit about just what the simplicity of cortisol might be.
Yeah. And what we have written down here at the very top, and just to preface this, is that cortisol is a very necessary hormone in the body. It's commonly referred to, if you went and asked 9 out of 10 people, if they said, hey, what about cortisol levels? What do you know? Most people would answer, probably the average person would say, oh, it's bad. I don't know what it is, but it's bad. Cortisol, we're going to let you know what it actually does in the body, and that cortisol is not all bad.
No,
it actually has a very specific physiologic function.
It's very helpful to talk to people who don't have any.
Yeah, Addison's
disease, right? You get very sick with everything.
So we need to talk about, like, cortisol is not the enemy here. Too much cortisol, dysregulation of cortisol, all these things, and we'll talk about how that all happens. Short of any actual disease like Addison's disease. We'll talk about things you can do to improve it. So
cortisol, in a nutshell, cortisol is made in the adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands sit kind of on top of your kidneys. It means adrenal is sort of Latin for on top of the kidney.
Right.
I
never actually thought. No, I've heard that so many times, and I've never actually thought adrenal. Yeah.
I took Latin in college. I almost had enough credits in college to get a minor in Latin.
Oh my gosh.
I can remember a summer term. It was just fun. We read the first book of the Gallic Wars by Julius Caesar, and in Latin, like we're reading this in Latin, and it was so fun. You get into Julius Caesar's mind, and I was like, there is like, the only thing I can draw a similarity to is James Kirk of Star Trek, because he said things that Captain Kirk would have said.
Yep.
But anyway, so adrenal sits on top of your kidney. That's what the adrenal gland, and the adrenal gland is what makes cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that your body makes. It releases every single day. And it's not just about like having some, it's actually a schedule. It's, I would call it cortisol is more like a scheduled thing. So it has a predictable and when it's doing its job correctly on this kind of daily schedule of a high and a low, that's when it's most helpful.
Follows this nice peak and really peaks pretty rapidly in the morning. When I say rapidly, over a 24-hour period, there's this steep incline where it peaks in the morning, and then gradually goes down as the day goes on, with the expectation that, of course, you're at your lowest point when you're going to bed.
Like about midnight is when that cycle hits the bottom, which is interesting, because that's what sometimes when it gets interrupted, your cycle, we can talk about the shape. But so the shape of this curve helps. So that spike in the morning gets you moving. It pulls you out of sleep. And then through the day, it keeps your blood pressure from crashing between meals. Like we don't eat constantly. We have intake, and your body takes it, and your body handles that and doesn't have these big crashes in your blood sugar, because cortisol kind of keeps that from happening. It keeps inflammation in check. and if you don't have any, you can get very sick. We talked about that a little bit. So the problem isn't ever just cortisol. The problem is when the switch stays on.
Yep.
And it doesn't get to do its natural daily variation kind of cycle.
Yep.
That it goes through. So that shape matters. When you have long-term stress, a lot of times involving sleep, I mean, I work in an ER, so that's, modern life has some stressors that really can affect this, and doing shift work, working late at night, working night shifts. Your cortisol, the normal shape of your cortisol curve is designed for a regular schedule.
Yeah, waking up with the sun. Yeah, waking up with the sun, and going to bed in the evening. Yeah. And frankly, shift workers, ER people that work in the ER, a lot of times don't really have the luxury of following that traditional schedule.
Right. So that normal curve. So you have this long-term stress then, and that affects your cortisol. But it doesn't just make like it taller or shorter. It really just flattens the curve. So it takes away that daily variation, and that causes its own problems. Without that spike in the morning, it's hard to get moving. You feel drained already, early,
sluggish, energy's low, you don't have that pep in your step.
And then as you get down towards bedtime, it's higher than it ought to be because it hasn't kind of gone through its regular little cycle, and it's hard to go to sleep, and you're not, and then you don't sleep as well, and then you compound the problem. Yeah. And it's just this cycle that feeds itself. So it's not about not having cortisol. It's not about having too much cortisol. It's about really not having the normal daily variation of that level.
Yep. And it happens in stressful jobs, which, I mean, a lot of jobs are stressful. ER for us being that, more stressful job, and then obviously when you're dealing with a stressful job, you're not only, if you're out of whack with just your sleep, that's one thing, but now we're talking about just stressors, life stressors, i.e. a stressful job. And so now, instead of, once again, your cortisol level peaking and then gradually falling throughout the day, actually what ends up happening is we spike it again, and then we spike it again, and then we spike it again. And as Rick had talked about, I mean, and then you're supposed to be able to just turn all that off, go home and go to bed and do it all over again. And it's just, your body does not do well with that. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work well like that.
No. And so there's some other things that happen. So as cortisol has effects on your body, having that lack of normal variability, it leads to something. So let's talk about and this is not just a hey, I didn't sleep well last night, tomorrow's going to be bad. Yeah. I have this constant. This is a long-term thing usually. Yep. I've been not sleeping well for weeks, months, and so it's like not having an off switch for months at a time.
Yeah,
not having that nighttime kind of recharge sort of thing, and that shows up in when somebody comes to the clinic and talk about weight loss. That's going to show up in a conversation a lot of the times because. Well, we can talk about the specific weight loss issues, but there's some things that happen with cortisol. Maybe talk about like what that costs you.
I mean, one thing that happens is, like, if you think about your body having that spike in cortisol in the morning, that's a good thing. We want that. When you're having additional spikes, your body doesn't know what's going on, why you're stressed. It has no clue what's actually happening there. It just knows that, maybe your body thinks that you can't find food, or that, you're being chased, or whatever it is. All your body does is trying to give you adequate resources to be able to deal with whatever the problem is. Your body hasn't been updated. We talk about this all the time. Your body doesn't know it's 2026 and that food or finding food is not most of our problem. And so what your body does in a lot of ways is it's a really good storer. And so cortisol level spikes. And then what does it do? It stores belly fat. Your belly, and specifically the midsection, is great at storing when you have high stress, high cortisol levels.
And the belly fat specifically tends to have like an extra helping of cortisol receptors.
Yep.
So it's affected more by this.
And it's by design, right? Your body is doing this out of a survival mechanism, right? So it's not that your body's broken. Our body's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It didn't know that you can be stressed over things other than survival, right? It doesn't know that you're stressed about that.
Like there's a gorilla in the village,
or it doesn't know that like you're just stressed about having lunch with your mother-in-law, Your body doesn't know. And so what ends up happening is that your body goes into survival mode. And what survival mode means is that you slow, drastic, and this might sound like a good thing, but it's not over time. You actually can slow, your gastric utility, like you actually slow digestion.
Yeah.
You kind of kill actually short term actually sometimes will kill your appetite. A lot of times you end up increasing cravings because you just have those, once again, not hunger, but cravings. Like you crave the bad
not just
stuff.
your appetite towards, and the cravings. Like, it's interesting because the cortisol tends to, like the hunger that you feel. Yeah. I think it's better to call it a craving because you tend to not want just to eat, but you want to eat the fast sugar.
Yep.
The food that calms the brain quickest. Yep. The things exactly that we don't want you to be like binging on.
And so you're eating not even out of hunger now. And then, so you're just doing it out of cravings. So now you're not even listening to your body. Are you hungry? Have you actually already eaten something? Yeah. Because the craving really is, I mean, why do people eat, right? They're either hungry or they're craving, or maybe even out of habit. Maybe they just like the taste. But in this case, when you have that craving driving you, right, what are you going to go? If it's a craving and not hunger, you're always going to go for the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, this is not stuff that we, generally speaking, want, because it's not going to help with your overall wellness, which is what we're trying to promote. So less muscle over time, but mostly out of that stress response, right? Your higher blood sugar.
Well, it does break down. Cortisol tends to be one of the effects sometimes is it your body has, so we've talked about, different ways your body uses energy, and there's multiple kind of chemical pathways that you can get body. So your body's, it's like got backup systems, right? And one of the I would call it the backup system for using energy. It's not just the making glucose and turning into ATPs and all that chemistry we've been talking about. But one of the sort of backup energy systems is to break down protein. And most of that is where, like we talk about protein, we're talking about muscle cells usually. And so cortisol actually stimulates the use of a backup system that breaks down protein. And so it, long term, that you get less muscle because your body's like, hey, I need to use some of this muscle for fuel.
Yeah.
And that's
well, and why? You ask, why would your body do that? Well, if your body thinks you're stressed because of the only reasons that your body ever thought you could be stressed, which is like food, shelter, water, it is a survival mechanism. So you're like, we can be frustrated all we want, but the reason why our species has gone from being cavemen to actually surviving through all of that is because we have these mechanisms in place. Our bodies just weren't newly designed in 2026. They still have all these processes that are supposed to keep us alive during times of stress and famine and all the things. So what happens? Then you start releasing more glucagon from the pancreas, which then promotes the liver to pump out more sugar. And so it's this,
and then your insulin, and then the pancreas is like, wait, I gotta keep up with this blood sugar, keep the spike, and we're gonna store that in the fat, and it's just this, and over a long period of time, weeks to months, then you're getting the exact opposite effect of what you're trying to accomplish.
Truly. And so it's just, I mean, you see how this is just kind of a process that builds on itself. It's like, we're supposed to have cortisol, but it's supposed to be this timely release thing. And when this gets out of whack for whatever reason, so we're going to talk about some lifestyle and functional things that you can do today. You could start today in doing and trying to get this under control. But it's important to understand why. Why is it that when you're more stressed, or why is it when you're not sleeping well and things like that, of why, or at least what role, because it's not just one thing, what role cortisol plays in all this. Because cortisol commonly gets talked about as the bad guy.
Right.
Cortisol is the good guy if you needed to survive.
It's the good guy if it's allowed to manage its functions as it's intended.
Yes. If it's working properly in the body and you have proper levels, that nice peak with the nice drawdown over the day, absolutely, it's a benefit to you. Unfortunately, 2026, a lot of us are just kind of out of whack that way.
Yeah. So if you're eating well, you're moving, you're exercising, you're taking your medication, your supplements, whatever it is, and the scales don't move, just what I described. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had someone come to the clinic and say that exact thing? I think I'm doing this. I'm eating well. I'm moving. I'm taking my medications, and the scale's staying the same.
Yep.
All the time.
So many times.
Right. And so one of the first things that we look at is okay. We're, let's check. We're doing those things. Is sleep and stress.
Absolutely.
And those are two variables that are often left out of the conversation. They and they feed on each other. Sleep and cortisol. Like if you sleep poorly, your cortisol is going to be a little higher the next day, which makes it harder to go to sleep the next day, and easier to get up at 3 a.m. and not fall back asleep and sleep poorly. And so that's how you turn a bad week of sleep into a bad 6 months.
Absolutely. And it just does feed on itself. It's this vicious cycle truly that happens. And so typically a lot of times when people are like, look, I'm working out and I'm trying to eat good and all that stuff. Yeah, we can maybe make some improvements there, but a lot of times we are starting to hit the things that don't go as noticed. Sleep is a big one. There's a million, and I mean a million. You can go do any Google search and find a million studies that talk about the correlation between not sleeping well and really weight gain. And a lot of that has to do with cortisol. I mean, there's other factors, but a lot of it really stems from cortisol. And so it seems counterintuitive, right? If I'm not sleeping as much, like you'd think I'd be skinnier, not fatter, because I'm not sleeping as much. Like
I'm awake and burning energy.
Yep. It's just not the case. The way your body has all these little chemical processes that are taking place, cortisol being a big factor in that. And so when you're not sleeping, it's like your body can't carry out all those other processes that are so important for functioning and actually for eventually, using fat for energy. If cortisol levels are flat,
right,
not peaking and then dropping, and or if they're being spiked multiple times a day, be due to stress and poor sleep and all that. So sleep is definitely going to be one of those big ones to start.
So let's talk about lifestyle, some of those lifestyle changes we can make. Maybe first we want to debunk some myths. I like those myth busting episodes we did. Like what are you going to read on the internet about cortisol?
Sure. Right? Let's talk about that. And then we'll talk about some lifestyle things.
Okay. So number one, our cortisol phase.
Yeah.
That's not a medical term.
No.
And endocrinologists do not use that term. Everyday, like puffiness in the face, you might notice, usually traces back to salt, alcohol, poor sleep, allergies, crying.
This is really not something that's been found. Yeah.
There's the real cortisol driven version. They call it moon phases.
Yeah.
That comes with many other findings that are actual diseases that are diagnosed by a physician, not a mirror.
You'll find it on lab work. It's not going to be something that
it's not common. They're rare and actual medical conditions, but just having cortisol isn't going to make you fat in the face.
No, it's not going to do that. So, you can't actually look at someone and just tell what their cortisol level is. If you could, you should.
You may read about people who say they have adrenal fatigue. My adrenal glands they've just been working so hard, and they get tired out by my stressful job.
Or adrenal burnout is another one that they call that. Adrenal fatigue, adrenal burnout. And, this is one that's promoted by a lot of functional medicine offices. And it's, I think it's well intentioned, saying that, look, you've just been stressed and you're just getting exhausted from this. But it's talked about like it's like the cortisol levels are exactly designed to
when you say but when you attribute that to your adrenal gland getting too tired and just stopping working, that's not a recognized thing. It's not a thing. No. Like there are real conditions, like what you mentioned, Addison's disease. That's the disease where you have real adrenal insufficiency. It means your adrenal glands just don't work.
Yep.
And so you don't make cortisol. And those people tend to get very, very sick very, very easily and need some specific medications if they have certain conditions, certain illnesses, because their body just cannot mount a good response to those things. But again, that's a rare thing. And it's not just, I had a really stressful, nobody in any endocrine society is going to say, oh, you have a really stressful job for a long time. You probably have Addison's disease because your adrenal gland is fatigued. That's a totally different thing.
It's just not a thing. And it's, we can argue that long-term stress, not sleeping, all the things is not going to be good for you long-term. Right. There's adrenal fatigue is still not recognized. Adrenal burnout is not recognized as a medical condition. So if,
so
I would be cautious with that one.
So I took an at-home test, or I want to get my cortisol level checked.
Yeah.
How's that going to help me?
Yeah.
Right. You just had somebody you were talking to the other day.
Yeah. And it's like, the thing is that you can check cortisol levels. We have the ability to do a serum test of cortisol levels, but it would be more in trying to more so understand if you have a disease,
a real disease that affects your adrenal glands. That's what we're looking for with those. This is not a thing that finding a level at any given time of the day. Really, what are you going to do with that information? It's not going to be helpful for any medical provider to come up with a plan.
Clinically, it's close to meaningless.
Yeah,
it's as close to meaningless as you can without looking for a specific disease like Addison's disease.
Right.
The reason why, and I actually get tons of requests to have their cortisol levels checked, is because if I check your cortisol levels and they're low, or they're elevated, or like anywhere in between, which I'll let you know, 99.99999% of the patients I check are in the normal range.
That's a lot of nines.
I mean, really, they're mostly in the normal range. And so I'm not discounting it. If you know you're stressed and you know you're not sleeping and you know you're not moving or working out and you know you're not getting enough sun, and we'll talk about all this stuff, then I can almost assure you that you are not in a good pattern with your cortisol. Right. So we need to start working on correcting some of those. And so, because the lab test is not like, if let's say your cortisol is 50, it doesn't.
What does that mean?
You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to say do anything different than if your cortisol was lower than that or higher than that. The answer is the same no matter what your level is. So, so like I said, unless we're looking for a very specific disease, which in most cases we're not, you would have found that probably at
there's other side. Yeah, you're going to know.
You're going to know it earlier on
the 5th grade.
Yeah. The truth is that there's I don't mind checking it if you want to check it, but it's come more of more of like a populist thing, not actually driven by medicine, not driven by, and when I say medicine, I mean like by medical practice, not by taking medicine.
Okay, here's the last one. I read on the internet that adaptogens reset my hormones, including cortisol. Adaptogens.
Oh,
that is not a pharmacological term. That is a marketing word. Correct?
Yep. And ashwagandha being the number one popular thing.
Ashwagandha. Yeah.
Now there's some trials that kind of can show some effects with ashwagandha and cortisol levels. But we're not there yet to proclaim that ashwagandha.
Small studies, short studies,
sure.
Some maybe encouraging results. But as of what we know today, nothing you can buy off a shelf is better than a consistent bedtime.
I mean, nothing. Right? I mean, if you could do one thing, I mean, because look, I can't stop you from stressing at work. Your job's probably going to be stressful no matter what we do, right? Your family, in certain ways, not even in bad ways, but are going to be stressful. You're going to have life stressors. I wish I could just tell everyone, just stop stressing. No, you're going to stress. It's normal.
Don't have stress in your life.
Yes, I know. So that'd be fantastic, right? The difference being is that we're going to give you kind of the same answers for how do we fix this. Now you're going to go, I don't care how many naturopath, functional medicine providers you go see. And I'm not against these people. I actually think that a lot of the stuff that they promote is really the stuff that we promote helpful. Here. Yep. We just aren't going to try to tell you that we have some special thing that you can do that's beyond like the understanding of all these other medical professionals. So we're going to give it to you here for free because we just want people to feel good. And really the evidence points towards the same things that we've really been talking about for a long time. You want to regulate your cortisol levels? Let's talk about a few things we can do to regulate your cortisol levels in a good way.
So number one, so let's talk about, I call this the boring list, right? Because it's not glamorous. This is really the things to do to help your cortisol are not like big glamorous things. They're not like high effort things, big lifestyle changes. You know, the number one thing could be potentially it's probably for me one of the most difficult things to do, and that is sleep for 7 to 9 hours a day on a consistent schedule. Same wake time daily.
By far the most consistent thing to regulate your body to regulate your cortisol levels, not using supplements, not using anything out there like that. If you want to regulate your cortisol levels, the number one thing that we can find to do is just get sleep.
A good consistent on the same schedule, a good consistent, and it's not, and really even just saying that helps regulate your cortisol levels. It helps your body keep that curve with the spike and the decline that it's supposed to have throughout the day.
Yeah. And we get it. There's people with insomnia, there's people with sleeping issues, but most people, when I talk to them about, insomnia or not being able to fall asleep or things like that, I mean, typically if you don't have like a full blown true insomnia, if it's just that you have a hard time going to sleep, then you have a hard time waking up, things like that. Most of the time we can trace it back to the lifestyle things, right?
Yeah.
You're on your phone too late. You're watching movies too late. I know a couple people that are big readers that just honestly can't put down their dang book.
I've done that.
I know. And it's just, I'm not hating on you. Look, I love a good book as much as the next guy. But if you're like, hey, I'm really adamant about getting this dialed in, you at some point have got to set an alarm, do whatever, and say, no matter where I'm at in this book, I need to come to a stopping point. Because if you're wanting to get these truly regulated, you have to set some limitations.
Yeah, you got to be consistent.
And so it really just comes down to a lot of the really like functional basic things. Now, sure, there are people with true insomnia, sometimes situational insomnia. They're going through a big life stressor, can't sleep, or truly like functional insomnia. They just really cannot go to sleep. This is why you need to talk to your medical doctor. Like getting your sleep dialed in can regulate so many things. And so sometimes that's forced, like sometimes you need a pharmaceutical agent to be able to help you to do that.
Yeah.
I would argue all day, every day that getting on something like that to help you sleep would be better than just never sleeping.
Yeah.
You need to get sleep.
You got to get some sleep on a schedule. So then the next thing, regular exercise that you recover from. So this is, just having regular movement. And I'm going to key that with the number 3 thing is getting some morning daylight.
Yep.
Dim light at night, morning daylight. So honestly, those top 3 things, if you can sleep at go to bed at a consistent time, wake up at a consistent time, and then go for a walk outside in the sunshine.
Yep.
Even those 3 things, that's like probably by far more effective than anything you're going to find on the internet. You're going to buy on a shelf. You're going to get in a health food store. It's just doing those 3 things, like top 3.
I didn't know how much this would affect me. I knew I wanted windows in my office, my medical office, because we don't have we don't have windows in the ER.
Right.
And
I go home after an ER shift. I'm there for like 9 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. And I get home and my wife's like, oh my gosh, the yards are wrecked because of the storm. I'm like,
storm?
It rained. What storm?
What?
I didn't even know it rained.
I know, it's so wild. And so working in the ER, we just don't have windows. And then I had an office forever that didn't have windows. It was an inside office. I finally really wanted an office with windows. We eventually ended up getting one, and I've had it for not even a year now.
No.
Can I just tell you that I noticed such a huge difference now, just going to the office in the morning and just having these windows and the sun's coming through. My energy has been so much better. I can really feel, I mean, I can't, whatever I think I'm feeling is like, I really do feel that nice peaking out of my cortisol levels of like waking me up, getting me ready to go. It's fascinating. I mean, just, I'm just giving you obviously a personal experience, but I am shocked at the amount of energy, the amount of mental clarity I have in the mornings when I go to the office versus when I used to go to the office and I would just,
and it's in this dark cave, like
you just,
building.
I mean, it's just hard. Your body's meant to have sun. You're meant to have those blue lights and UV rays and all these things, like obviously within reason. And just having those come through the windows. And now my office has a window in every room.
It's great.
It's fantastic. So I've just noticed that personally. So do whatever you got to do. Everyone works in a different environment, but take advantage of the sun. I mean, that's why Rick said it's such a boring list, because he's like, sleep better, get some sun. I mean, but you want to regulate this out. It really
does affect things. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So next number, what are we at down on number 4?
Yeah.
Eat enough on a regular schedule. You can't, like, people on a crash diet really mess up your cortisol.
Totally.
And even just any loss, as you're trying to be in a calorie deficit and lose some weight, your cortisol is going to fight you a little bit on that. So all these other things become even more important, but you can't. Starving yourself is is the stressor that you're talking about that our body was built for.
Yes.
You know, so the crash diet is much more like starving
Yeah.
yourself in caveman times
Yes.
than kind of eating a little bit on a regular schedule. So eating enough on a regular schedule is going to be helpful to let that cortisol regulate itself
Absolutely.
rather than like starve yourself for a long period of time.
Yeah, and there's so many reasons for that. I mean, you know, starving yourself is really, it's going to mess your cortisol rhythm up. We've talked about, obviously, it's going to be very hard to maintain nutrients, including, like we talked about last episode, creatine and all that stuff. If you're not supplementing it, how can you imagine that you can keep good energy stores in your muscles, in your brain, in your heart, and even just have energy to do the normal things every day if you are going through these long periods of literally starving yourself.
Yeah.
And so you just really, cortisol is another reason why you need to really be able to have a good, consistent diet and get good nutrients.
Okay. Last few, a little less effective than these top ones, but some slow breathing exercises, 5 minutes of kind of some long exhales, meditation type breathing. So take a breath in and out.
Oh, we just need to record that.
No, so some breathing exercises, just a few minutes a day is helpful, helps the cortisol. Spending time with people you actually like.
Yeah.
That's actually a measurable physiologic stressor is loneliness. So you know, take time to be with someone.
It's the only reason me and Rick do this podcast.
Right.
We are just trying to
regulating our cortisol right now.
Sometimes his is dysregulated by showing up here with me, but you know, it happens.
And then a couple of other final little things. Caffeine.
Yep.
You know, I think the recommendation would be cut caffeine off about 8 to 10 hours before
bare minimum
bedtime.
6.
So that means like you're not having a big Dr. Pepper with dinner
this is
at lunchtime. Like at noon, you're cutting your caffeine for the day.
This is a big one. I've actually had several patients when we were able to get this dialed in, and we had at least 6 hours. We always shoot for that 8 to 10, but at a bare minimum of 6 hours, cutting off that caffeine. I cannot tell you, their sleep schedule gets so much better. They're feeling so much better. Interestingly enough, of course, rather than having less energy, eventually they actually end up with more energy because they just get regulated. Yep. Big one.
I think that's it. I mean, we could talk about the ashwagandha caffeine, the supplements, but I'm not going to mention that one because really the data isn't there. The evidence doesn't really support it.
No, I mean, supporting just a healthy lifestyle.
I mean, it's not. I don't know if there's harm in taking some ashwagandha, but certainly it is nowhere near as effective as some of these things, especially those top 3. So that's cortisol in a nutshell. I don't know if we need to go more into that, but
nope, I don't think so.
It's that's kind of one of the whys we do some of these things. Why we talk about sleep, why we talk about exercise, why we talk about movement, why we talk about sunlight. It's going to be what can make you healthier ever after.
And I think the biggest thing to remember and the biggest takeaway from this is cortisol is not the enemy. Dysregulation of cortisol is. So work on the lifestyle stuff. And if you can get that kind of dialed in lifestyle wise, then just basically doing the other things that we talk about on a regular basis.
Let your body have its cortisol wave on its regular schedule. Don't mess up the wave.
Yep. When you can affect it, when you can do those things, prioritize those things and work on that. And cortisol will come up a million times. As we do this.
Okay. Well, stay healthy. We'll be back
after.